Hey there.
Welcome to the Gunning Truth, and it's that time again to discuss all things Arsenal, from the ladies to the academy to the first team. And it just seems like Arsenal lost to the way that everybody's going on. So I do understand Man City is this juggernaut. Liverpool is getting back to winning form. They've continued their winning form from last season, but yeah, Arsenal didn't lose. Tottenham are playing well. And they obviously deserved something out of the game, and they are our rivals, and we're irritated that they were able to get something after quite a number of years where Arsenal comfortably won the Emirates North London derby. But sometimes you have to take certain things into perspective. Arsenal are not quite there, and unfortunately it just is that we were unable to perform when we had our third player in a specific position. Both wide wingers out injured, both holding midfielders out injured, and just we weren't able to get anything. And unfortunately, when we needed a Kai Havertz, he still isn't able to perform at his best. A very difficult role, the left 8 role. The left 8 role basically for Arsenal. And obviously it took Xhaka a long time to kind of get his stamp or put his authority, or stamp his authority, I should say, into that position. And obviously Kai Havertz coming from all sorts of issues within the German camp as well as Chelsea, it's difficult. I'm not bigging him up. There were occasions where he could have done better, skyrocketed what was a decent chance to score what would have been a winner. And he put himself about in the game. But unfortunately, when we draw, and it was a disappointing draw, we tend to analyze all these little moments. We tend to analyze Jesus' missed opportunity. He should have scored. And it's probably right of pundits, whether we like them or not, to complain about the fact that Arsenal's central strikers don't always score the goals. But then you have to go back to last season. We did score 88 goals or whatever, 80-odd goals in the Premier League. So goals were shared, so we have to also take things into account. Unfortunately, whether it's an excuse or not, quite a number of teams did struggle. I know other teams got the result at the end of the day, but loads of teams had tough games or performances on the scoreboard, you can even say, after Champions League week, and Tottenham did have the entire week to prepare. But it's not an excuse. We knew this was going to happen. We knew that the outlay of money on the players that we brought in was going to put pressure on us. And obviously Rice has basically started like a house on fire. Obviously he must have been injured for him to obviously have gone off. And it's, as we were told, it's a back issue. And having read a bit about it today, it sounds like he had trouble walking after the game. So that's a bit of a concern, and hopefully it's not a long-standing issue, because obviously certain injuries stem from other issues, muscular problems, etc. So hopefully it's going to be a short-term thing. I personally think he will be back for Bournemouth on Sunday, but it makes it a bit tricky. Maybe he would have been rested anyway for the Brentford game tomorrow. So the Brentford game, it's a Carabao Cup. We didn't do too well last season in the cup competitions. To be fair, we did lose to a difficult opposition. So the teams that knocked us out is the teams that we lost to in the league anyway. So we lost in the league to Brighton. They knocked us out of the Carabao Cup. And it's not an excuse, it's just the reality. We tend to struggle against Brighton. And then obviously Man City beat us at the Etihad. Arsenal's best performance out of the 3 games against Man City last season. We lost all 3 comfortably. But to a lesser extent, I thought we played well in the FA Cup game at the Etihad. So once again, it's to do with the luck of the draw. Manchester United, I don't want to keep bringing them up, but the reality is they did win a trophy last season, and they were at home for every single one, and struggled in the semi-final against Brighton, which could have gone either way, and then obviously comfortably won the final. So they did win it. They deserve to win the trophy, but sometimes the luck of the draw does come into the play in terms of who you get and where you get them. And that's just something that needs to be taken into account. So I'm at this point where I don't want to be in a situation where I say we need to give up the competition. We just need to make sure that the players that come in, or the players themselves that are coming into the game, need to take responsibility. And that is what I think. So let's have a look at Arsenal Spurs first of all. Okay, why am I shouting? Okay, so disappointing result, obviously 2-2. I did go through it with my Monday reaction. I thought Arsenal were poor in the second half, disappointingly so. Some things that irritated me was obviously our finishing ability once again in a big game, not taking opportunities, and then obviously the other case of with not taking the opportunities, we then created issues for ourselves. So I really liked the way that we pressed Tottenham and created opportunities from that press, which we weren't able to take. From there onwards, mistakes started happening. So a very disappointing mistake from Jorginho, who is an experienced player. You don't expect that from him, but he did make a mistake, which led to their goal. And it just seems like when there's a similar mistake, we don't quite pounce on it. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. You can also look at it at Spurs also made mistakes, but we don't look at it that way. We look at ourselves. We analyze ourselves. So Spurs also made mistakes for the 2 goals through Romero, and in that case, Arsenal were lucky to then get their 2 goals in that way. So everybody makes mistakes, yes, I understand that, but obviously if you look through the glass of Arsenal, then it's getting a bit too much now. Already 4 points dropped at home. So we're a little bit up and down at this moment in time, and we need to start figuring out a way to play football games and to win football games. So we've done that mostly this season, 2 draws obviously and 4 wins if I'm not mistaken. So it's not the end of the world. If Arsenal do well in the next 2 games, then we are better off than last season. We said that obviously before this game, that if we win this game, then we're better than last season. So it's narrow, but obviously we are not playing the way that we did. There is structural changes to the way we're playing, so I can understand from that standpoint. I've been moaning and explaining that Arsenal will be up and down first 10 games. I don't know what it's going to look like in 10 games from now. Maybe we'll be there and thereabouts. Maybe we would have dropped more points. But basically, I didn't know if I don't know if I thought that we would lose. I did think we would draw a couple of games in the first 10 games or so, because we're not quite there. We've changed things. We've got new players in that needs to get used to the system. So from that standpoint, I kind of expected this amount of points at this stage. I probably thought we were going to win 4, draw 2, but I obviously didn't know in which order. So I probably before the season, or when I started doing content for this season, thought that we would get round about what we got now. What I didn't bank on was obviously Man City and Liverpool starting so well as well, and then Spurs as well. So it's so many ways that you can analyze this, but just in terms of the performance, once again, if you listen to content creators and analysts, etc., about the Raya performance, there was 1 or 2 that kind of agreed with me in terms of his distribution not being good. He had a decent game, made a couple of good saves. I thought that Brennan Johnson, it's weird, Brennan Johnson had a big opportunity for Nottingham Forest on the opening day of the season, and then also a big opportunity. He scuffed his shots on both occasions, or he overshot for Forest, and then he scuffed his shot this time around. So if he hit it properly, it would have been a goal. So and then obviously Son, once again able to finish off chances better than we are able to finish off our chances. So from that standpoint, that's a bit disappointing. And then there's Jorginho. Quite a number of times that he haggled with the ball, and the one occasion, obviously, they took the ball off him and ended up going to go and score 2-2 directly after us scoring that penalty. And then just Bukayo Saka, for example, very disappointing. Maybe not his fault per se, but whoever's fault it is, we should have pushed onto Udogie, who had a very good game in my opinion, and is really showing, there he is, he's really showing that he's a decent player. But disappointing that he got an early yellow card and we didn't attack that side of the field too much. And then the substitutions. So Saka and Nketiah and Jesus, that was our front three. They all ran their socks off. Okay, so it wasn't perfect on the day. They all ran their socks off, Odegaard as well. But it was clear to see that with about 15 minutes or so to go, we were playing with 10.5 players, because Bukayo Saka have been kicked all over and he just wasn't looking good. Even in today's press conference, Arteta said that he might be a doubt for Bournemouth, disappointingly so. And yeah, I think maybe he should have gone off. I don't know how I would have done it tactically, because the fact that Rice is out, Thomas Partey is out, we lacked physicality in midfield. So we had to, as Arteta says, for tactical reasons, had to take off Vieira, because otherwise the midfield is completely slight. El Neni is not quite there yet, and he isn't the player that we need. Jorginho is a slight player. Yes, he plays the 6 role very well, other than the mistake that he made. And then obviously then Kai Havertz had to come on in the left 8. I would have preferred him as a 9. Or maybe move Kai Havertz towards the left, because he was drifting that way anyway. And but then again, you can't really have Odegaard, Vieira, Jorginho. I don't think that works in this game, especially with Basuma and Sarr having a physical presence there. So yeah, I honestly don't know how we could have done it better, just because of the injury factor. We just couldn't make the subs the right ways. However, Jesus was still doing well. Maybe it is due to the knee issue that Arteta felt, and we've got other injuries now piling up. So he felt maybe due to the injury situation, that's why he had to take off Jesus. And Nketiah and Saka, they are more durable players. Whether they were having good games or not, that is not the point. It's Jesus that's obviously had this long-standing knee issue. So I'm just trying to understand why he took him off, because he obviously had a good game. From a pressing standpoint and creating havoc, he didn't finish well. That's understood, but he was in positions to score goals, whereas Nketiah wasn't, Saka wasn't really pressing on to Udogie. So yeah, I think that the injuries was a problem. It's not an excuse. Well done to Spurs. I don't mean it, but let me just say it out there. Well done to Spurs for getting a draw and celebrating like they won the Champions League. However, turn it back to us. When we beat Man City, we only drew with them. We were ecstatic and celebrating. So in their case, they are the inferior team. And they came to draw at the Emirates after getting a couple of hidings the last couple of seasons. So, and they are improving as a team. So I can understand why they went on about it, but it's not a 2-2 loss. We are still undefeated, and we're not playing anywhere near where I think this team is capable of playing. So we leave it at that, because I'm starting to get pissed off now. Anyways, right, team news. Arsenal injuries, it's starting to build up now. I'm starting to get pissed off with this as well. Jurriën Timber out very likely until May. There's a couple of accounts that's saying he could be back second month of next year, February. No chance. He's not Sia Kolisi. Declan Rice might make Bournemouth. So the back problem is something that could be a problem. Remember Saliba with a back problem? So is our 105 million player going to be in and out this entire season? That's going to be a big problem for Arsenal and their hopes of doing things in the Champions League and league. Thomas Partey might actually make the City game. He's ahead of schedule. So I'm not entirely sure how we're going to do the team for that game. Is going to be Thomas, Rice and Odegaard. I would like to think that could be the team for that Man City game. So that could be the midfield 3 for City. That's on the 8th. It's not too long away, less than 2 weeks. Martinelli might make the City game. He is out of the Brazilian national team's October international break. So that means maybe the injury is worse than thought. But it is said that all these guys that I've listed above the dates of the upcoming games, they are all likely going to make the City game. But obviously we've got Brentford tomorrow night, and then we've got on Saturday, Saturday 4 o'clock, so 3 o'clock English time, the 3 o'clock kickoffs as per norm. We've got these guys that's all probably not going to play both tomorrow as well as Saturday. So it's going to be very interesting to see the teams that we pick. Wednesday, so upcoming games. Next 3 games are all away from home, and Arsenal seem to be better away from home, so we'll see if that's still the case. Brentford, obviously in the Carabao Cup. Bournemouth on Saturday. Bournemouth can be a tricky team. They can be good at home. They have struggled this season. They just recently came off a loss to Brighton away from home, so we'll see how that one goes. And then we play Lens in France on Tuesday the 3rd. I think we can, with a changed team, do okay in this next 3 games. It's just that all these players, we need them back by Sunday the 8th against Man City, because they're going to be without Rodri and De Bruyne. They still have Haaland, they still have Alvarez in good form, Foden is in good form. And this Matthias Nunes can play. He's a really good player, and Doku. So they still have more than enough to beat us on the day if we haven't got our serious players back. And then just below the fixtures, I've got a couple of the youngsters that's been doing really well for under 18s and under 21s recently of the last year or so. Lino Sousa scored 2 goals against the Mancunians of Manchester in a 4-2 win for Arsenal at Manchester United last week. So he can play an inverted role. They are trying to coach him into that. He used to be a conventional left back. And then we've got Miles Lewis-Skelly, Mario Cozier-Dubry, and Ethan Nwaneri. I'm sure I spelled Cozier-Dubry's name wrong. Could be. I'll double check that again. But yeah, those 3 players, in fact, all 4 of them have been involved under 18s and under 21s. Mario Cozier-Dubry is very close to Saka. Not now in terms of quality, but the way that he plays. So I'm really hopeful we can maybe get some of these guys playing against Brentford. It's going to be tough. Obviously, you don't want to play too many youngsters, but maybe have them on the bench, and then hopefully things are going okay. Let's get Cozier-Dubry and Nwaneri on. That's when Nwaneri made his Arsenal debut last season against Brentford, I think it was. Was it Brentford or was it Bournemouth? Brentford, yeah, it was Brentford. So youngest ever player to play for the Arsenal. So let's see how that one goes. Not entirely convinced about tomorrow because it's going to, I don't know. On the one hand, you don't want Arsenal to play too many of the main players because you want to start trusting the squad. And on the other hand, I don't know how serious we want to take this competition because we are not able to even handle the start of the every 3-day game period started now, and we already have all these injuries to key players. It's the start of you playing every 3 days, not we have been playing every 3 days for a while. So luckily, other than Timber, all of these guys are not far away in terms of the injury guys. So then the squad looks much stronger than after that. But yeah, I'm not very confident tomorrow, especially if Brentford play a full team. I can see us going out of the competition. However, Bournemouth and Lens, we need to win those games and we need to beat Man City, and then things will look a little bit better. In terms of youngsters, yeah, Lino Sousa, I don't think we will play him because we could, but if I can just look at the team that I've selected. So what is this thing called? Team news. Where's team news? There we go. Take that one out, and then the team to play. There we go. Cool. So this is the team that I've gone with. Ramsdale in goal. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how he goes. Will he be cold, as they like to call it? I've gone with Cedric at right back because I really want to rest Saliba. So that's why I've gone that route, so that White can then play centre back. You could be in a situation where Tomiyasu or Kivio can change positions. You could also be in a situation where Arsenal play a back 3 of White, Kivio and Tomiyasu, but then there's no one to play an inverted role. So not that Cedric or Tomiyasu is going to play an inverted role in this game, but Zinchenko, Saliba, Gabriel probably should not be playing this game. I've gone with Jorginho. I don't know if El Neni is available, and if El Neni is available, you need to also start Jorginho because of that experience, and I don't think Arsenal are going to go with Jorginho and El Neni. It's not a bad idea to go Jorginho, El Neni and Vieira, maybe a double pivot. And then obviously have Vieira playing as in the Ødegaard role, and then maybe have Havertz up front and Jesus on the left and Nelson on the right. I don't know why Nelson is captain there in the graphic, but I obviously can't change it now. So the captain will obviously be Jesus. So yeah, that's the team that I will go for. So the one that's on the screen, not the one that I try to change now again. It's very difficult to see. I did see, other than the injured players, everybody training. So I'm assuming that it might be a strong squad. The likes of Ødegaard might actually start. There's no chance Saka plays. So our wide players are only Nelson, and then obviously Vieira and Smith Rowe, who are actually mostly 10s that can play in wide positions. So you could have a Smith Rowe, Jesus, and Vieira, but Nelson is playing. So Nelson could possibly play on the left, Smith Rowe on the right, so that Smith Rowe and Vieira interchanges as our 10s. We could, I can't see Smith Rowe and Vieira both playing in a midfield 3. That's not going to work. The reason why I've got Havertz there is he needs to obviously get better, and we need that physical presence in midfield. Whether he is actually physical or not, That I don't know, because I do see sometimes he struggles in one-on-one deals. He wins everything in the air, so let's give him that. So interesting to see what's going to happen. I personally wouldn't have Saliba and maybe we could go Gabriel, just due to the fact that he didn't start the first couple of games of the season. So maybe we could go Kivior and Gabriel. They did play before. We're both left-footed centre-backs played together. So Kivior at right centre-back, and then either have White rest and Cedric play, or have White play once again. So that's also something that could happen. But in terms of the left back, Tomiyasu has to play there come tomorrow night. So it's going to be very interesting. The injuries is not helping things. So we'll have to wait and see what happens when it comes to the situation. Right then, the Arsenal ladies are back this coming week. So just a quick backstory once again. Arsenal ladies, loads of players were at the World Cup, and FIFA just decided that you have to come and play probably 10 days after the World Cup final. You're going to have to go and play very important Champions League qualifiers, because only the top team goes through automatically. The second team from last season has to go into a second qualifying round and a first qualifying round in a group stage, so for the Arsenal. So it was embarrassing in the sense that we've got all these world-class players. Yes, they were very tired, very likely after the international, after the World Cup. And now, obviously, you have to go into a pre-season. I don't know where they are mentally. Just directly after a couple of days away, probably after the World Cup. Some of them may be even disappointed, because, not maybe, they were. Because we had a few players that got second and third. So you obviously wanted to win the World Cup. We do have one World Cup winner. So she also had to go and celebrate and go to family and all that after the World Cup was done, and then join a new team. We had loads of new players as well. We still have loads of players that has had ACL injuries. Only one was able to make the bench and not play at all, Beth Mead. So when it comes across as excuses, it's just the reality that the FIFA scheduling and the UEFA scheduling just wasn't fair towards the Arsenal women, and they got knocked out by Paris FC. Despite fighting quite hard in the game, it was about the fight. It wasn't about the qualities of the teams, because of what I just mentioned now. So many things. However, Arsenal are out of the Champions League. They unfortunately went out embarrassingly in the first round. So you have to call a spade a spade. It is embarrassing, because we have got one of the most expensively assembled squads in Europe, and we weren't able to do the job. Yes, we do understand the things that I just mentioned about the scheduling and that, but we should have been good enough. And that now goes away. So the big Champions League nights at the Emirates Stadium goes away. However, in terms of the upcoming games, Arsenal's first 4 games in October, I would say all of them are winnable, especially with the squad that Arsenal have. They have to start well. And one positive from those games and the pre-season training is that Arsenal have played football. Now, I think Man United, they who are in the second round of the qualification, would also have had football from pre-season friendlies. I don't know when their Champions League, because I haven't actually followed that now that Arsenal are out. So it's possible that they have played a Champions League qualifier, or it's going to happen. It might even take place the week before Arsenal play Man United. But Man United did finish second last season. They did beat us twice. In fact, our new striker scored both winning goals, Alicia Russo, for Arsenal. So she will be returning to Man United on the 6th of October. But a big game against Liverpool. Liverpool, not a great team in the WSL. They are former league champions. And funny enough, they did beat Chelsea at the beginning of last season. Chelsea have started poorly on the opening day for the last 2 seasons. So Liverpool beat Chelsea last season, and the year before that Arsenal beat Chelsea at the Emirates Stadium. Chelsea still went on to win the league. So Arsenal need to start well. They actually did start well last season. They started well 2 seasons ago, and then the injuries started to pick up. However, they've got a much stronger squad to cope with all the injuries, and eventually all these ACL injured players, ladies, are going to come back, and then the squad is going to be super strong. However, they won't be able to compete for the European trophy, unfortunately. There's no UEFA Cup that you can go into, or a Conference League that you can go into. There's just the WSL which is the league, the FA Cup later on in January, and then obviously the League Cup, which has a group format for teams that did not make the Champions League. So they're going to get quite a number of games to get the players into the swing of things. So maybe it's going to be a good thing. We'll have to wait and see. It's never a good thing not to be in the Women's Champions League, as Arsenal made the semi-finals last season. So it's still, a bit of a problem from a mental standpoint for these ladies. Hopefully they are able to be stronger for it, and they will be back next season in the Champions League with this players as a settled squad, this expensively assembled squad from women's terms. Okay, so Arsenal are playing Liverpool on Sunday. I've already checked the schedule. They are showing Man United. Who's Man United playing? Man United's playing someone. So they're showing that one on SuperSport, and they're showing Chelsea Tottenham. So they're not showing Arsenal Liverpool on SuperSport on Sunday. So that game will have to be other means would need to be found to watch that game. I have means, but I'm not going to say how. And then, so Arsenal did beat Liverpool last season relatively comfortably. They lost to Man United. They lost to Aston Villa on the last day of the season when they already qualified in third place, and then Bristol City on the 22nd of October. So 4 interesting games. It's going to be interesting to see how the ladies can cope with all of this stuff. So upcoming games and then upcoming shows. So Arsenal are playing Brentford tomorrow night in the Carabao Cup third round. I personally think we're going to go out, unfortunately. Combination of the injuries, the likelihood of quite a number of changes. So hopefully we can get a draw and go through on penalties, or just win the game. But Brentford, if they play a full team, are very difficult to beat, more so even than last season. I know Ivan Toney isn't there. He actually just started training, and there's lots of rumours that Arsenal are seriously in for him in January. I personally don't believe it, because I think there's a shortage of money in terms of buying a very expensive player this season, because Arsenal are now needing to generate cash again. They weren't able to sell well, so I'm not going to get into that whole tangent again. I don't think Arsenal's going to be spending 60 million in January, unless I'm mistaken. We'll have to wait and see. So Brentford tomorrow night, Saturday afternoon, Bournemouth away from home. Brentford obviously also away, and then Lens next week away from home, and then the big game against Manchester City. We need to kind of build momentum now again, and we need to get consistency in our game. Upcoming shows, so this show will then always record it on a Tuesday evening to then just allow YouTube to do its thing, and obviously post it on a Tuesday early evening, and then I'm going to record the Gunning Truth podcast on a Thursday evening to then obviously be broadcast on a Friday. And then I do try to do Off Your Game with Josh. So Josh and Roni Premier League preview and review show on a Friday evening or Saturday morning to then post Saturday lunchtime, and then my Monday reaction on Monday, which I post on I do the reaction on a Monday and I post it on a Monday. Very confusing, but that's the way to go. It's best to rather record rather than do things live. So hopefully Arsenal surprises me tomorrow. I'm not trying to be negative or all that. I just don't know what the team psyche is when it comes to the cup competitions, and I don't know if the players that gets brought in are going to be able to perform at optimum level. It's very different when the starting team is there and you bring these guys on in the final 20 minutes to make a difference. However, the likes of Smith Rowe and Nelson haven't done well in the last 18 months when they started. There's a big difference to starting and finishing football games, but we leave it at that.
Cadence.